The PlayStation 4 was my first ever foray into console gaming, and I feel very proud to say that because this console gave us some of the greatest exclusives of all time. These were games that did not just define a console, but a whole generation of gaming. They told stories that made you cry and featured gameplay that made it difficult to put the DualShock 4 controller down. Who knew a console that sounded like a jet engine would continue to inspire future gaming and cast a shadow over the success of the current generation? Today, we are counting down only the top 10 PS4 first-party exclusives. This is a subjective list and it's framed by personal taste. Before we do that, it is important that we set some ground rules. The list will have no remasters or remakes, so games like The Last of Us Remastered and Shadow of the Colossus will be absent. Next, there will be no cross-generation titles. For example, Horizon Forbidden West and God of War Ragnarok, which were released on both consoles at the same time, will be excluded. Finally, these are only first-party exclusives. I understand that most of these games have since been released on the PS5 and PC, but they were initially released as exclusives to the PS4, so you get the gist. Without further ado, let's start with our number 10. The Order 1886 is without a doubt the weakest game on this list, but I had to include it because it's so memorable for the PS4. The developers at Ready at Dawn were so obsessed with the technology that they literally created a 6-hour-long tech demo rather than an actual game. The cinematic presentation remains impressive even a decade later. There's truly nothing else like it. You can boot up this game today and still be blown away by its visuals. Despite a high ceiling, the game was a disappointment. The Victorian London setting, while incredible, but the game is so short that it makes no sense and offers no replay value. The gameplay, while impressive to look at, is filled with QTEs, leaving very little game here. Still, this title just reminds me so much of the PS4 generation that I had to include it. Infamous Second Son was one of the initial exclusives I played on the PS4. Delsin Rowe's journey of heroism or villainy through the living, breathing city of Seattle was one of the most fun experiences on the console. Simply traversing the city with its incredibly fluid parkour and thrilling superpowers was awesome. I didn't love the story. I found it too predictable. Delsin Rowe was a cool character voiced by the great Troy Baker, but it was really the sandbox experience coupled with the story choices that shaped my journey is what made it special. Initially, I was a little disappointed with Days Gone. My experience was significantly hampered by bugs and technical issues, but over time, I learned to appreciate the game more and more. There's a divide of opinion online, where critics really dislike the game, but players seem to genuinely enjoy it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I really enjoyed its gritty open-world survival experience, particularly riding a bike that felt like my own. The atmosphere is incredible, and the horde combat is some of the most exhilarating I've ever experienced in a video game, but at the same time, I think the story and Deacon as a character are quite bad, and the story's pacing is all over the place. The gameplay can also get very repetitive, and it just lacked that polish and uniqueness so prevalent in PS4 exclusives back then. Still, it's a great game to play. Keep an eye on the channel and hit that subscribe button as I plan to do a retrospective on it very soon. Uncharted: The Lost Legacy is possibly the weirdest game on this list. Its development began as DLC, but later became its own standalone title, and I absolutely loved it. It feels like the middle 6 hours of a mainline Uncharted game, which means it lacks the highs of the finale and the build-up of the beginning. However, the big set-piece moments and its exhilarating gameplay loop taken from Uncharted 4 are still incredible. The semi-open world setting of the Western Ghats in India is visually stunning and allowed for the much-anticipated open-world exploration that many, including myself, were looking for. The story feels less impactful without Nathan Drake, but Naughty Dog's state-of-the-art presentation, motion capture, and voice acting still make it one of the 10 best games on the PS4. At number 6, I have Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't think a lot of people understand the significance of Zero Dawn. While you typically get your racing games or first-person shooters as exclusives, it was rare, almost non-existent at the time, to have a huge, vast open-world RPG developed exclusively by a first-party studio. It was truly a remarkable feat. I still remember how big of a deal Horizon Zero Dawn was within the PlayStation community. The post-apocalyptic open world is one of the most stunning I have ever seen. It's one of the best looking games even now. There's something so special about the lighting, effects, and especially the lens flares kissing the camera. My god. The gameplay systems are so engaging and enthralling, almost near perfect. There's nothing like taking down a machine after emptying half your inventory. It also had a really good story, the tale of the old ones, and why Aloy is an outcast that connects the entire game is cool and fascinating. I really love Aloy as a character. She sometimes felt too rigid in this game, but she definitely grew on me. My main issue was with how the story was told. The science fiction elements were presented very poorly. If that were perfect, it would be much higher on this list. This game is the foundation of what makes Forbidden West one of my favorite games of all time, so I have to respect that. At number 5, I have Sucker Punch's magnum opus Ghost of Tsushima. This game is a work of art in so many ways. Its unique art style is a prime example of how a cool artistic direction can trump pure visual fidelity. Whenever I see this game in action, I still can't believe how the makers of Infamous pulled this off. The island of Tsushima is stunningly beautiful. You can see the love poured into every corner. The way the game has no HUD and uses nature to guide you is a masterful touch. Honestly, every open world game should have copied this. Amidst the pandemic, this game was, to say the least, a meditative experience. The combat also is magnificent. It's a blend of being eye-catching and great feeling, showing so much respect for Japanese culture and the samurai style, which is super cool. The story is also really good. It's paced incredibly well and has some incredible moments. Jin Sakai is a phenomenal character, and his inner conflict of whether to be an honorable samurai or the ghost is truly compelling and ties the whole package together. The issue with this game is the side content, which is very repetitive, and what you do in those missions moment to moment becomes boring. Still, it's a great game, and I can't wait for Ghost of Yotei because of that. We're only weeks away now. In my opinion, Marvel Spider-Man from Insomniac Games is quite literally the poster boy of the PS4. I just made a 7 years later video on it for the channel, which you can check out. To summarize my viewpoint, I think it's the best Spider-Man game ever made. Swinging around a breathtaking and sun-drenched New York City is still as fluid as one can remember, while the newer traversal features in the sequel can make it a bit difficult to go back to. This traversal system developed here is still a triumph. The combat is also incredible. It's inspired by the Arkham games, but it's vastly different because of Spider-Man's sheer acrobatic speed and agility. As for the story, it is quite literally the best Spider-Man story I've ever seen. The duality of balancing his role as Peter Parker and Spider-Man is perfectly captured here. Not to mention the cinematic movie-like set-piece moments, what many call the Unchartedification of Spider-Man, had never been done before in a game like this. It is hands down one of the PS4's must-play titles, and if you're buying a PS4 today, this would be the first game I'd recommend you to play. At number 3, I have God of War 2018. This is probably the most surprising game on my list, as I never really played the first 3 games. But when I played this one back in 2018, it gave me the same feeling I had when I first played The Last of Us. It's one of those games that is about the journey, not the destination. On the surface, the game is about a raging, angry father covered in blood and gore all the time. However, its true heart lies in the growing love between a father and his son, as the young boy's presence ultimately drives his old father's significant growth and change. This game tells such an amazing story, and it's delivered with a level of fidelity and polish I've rarely seen. The entire experience is presented through a single, uninterrupted camera shot, which is a masterful touch. Combined with a deep and satisfying gameplay system, it all feels perfect. The simple act of throwing the Leviathan axe and calling it back is an incredible and deeply rewarding experience every single time. If Marvel Spider-Man was one of the poster boys for the PS4 generation, the same can certainly be said for Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, the game that bookends Nathan Drake's story and gives this iconic character a proper final send-off. This was the very first game I played on my PS4, and I was absolutely blown away by every single aspect. Even today, this game could be released and easily be the best looking title on the market. Its visual fidelity and overall presentation are just top tier. It takes everything that made this franchise great and beautifully integrates the somber, darker, and more serious tone of The Last of Us. The story and characters are simply incredible, and the performances across the board were something I feel we had never seen at the time. Of course, it's not perfect. I think the final third of the game drags on a little more than I would like. Other than that, I really don't have much negative to say. The game was so far ahead of its time, and it remains, even after 9 years, a benchmark for narrative-driven, third-person action-adventure games. My number one pick is a controversial one, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for it, but of course, if you're a follower of my channel, you probably saw this coming. It's The Last of Us Part 2. What more can I say about this game that hasn't been said hundreds of times on the channel? You can check out my retrospective on it. I've never played a video game with a story so emotionally taxing. Joel and Ellie feel like real people to me, and whatever happens to them truly affects me. This game came out during a very challenging time, amidst a global pandemic, and after the credits rolled, I still remember feeling so much more depressed that I couldn't sleep for days. That's the power of Naughty Dog storytelling here. As for the presentation, we expect nothing less from Naughty Dog. It's just so much clearer than anything else. The environmental storytelling and the themes it works with are exceptional. While The Last of Us never really needed a sequel, this one stands on its own legs as something different. What surprised me most was the gameplay. I think this game has one of the most detailed and immersive gameplay packages I've ever seen. It's so satisfying, both in stealth and aggressive combat, with nuanced details and enemy AI that we had never seen before. Again, it's not perfect. I do think it has some pacing issues, and I slightly prefer the story of the first game. But overall, I don't think I've ever played a game with a production value this high. It's not only my favorite PS4 game, it's my favorite game of all time. So what do you think of my list? Do you agree with my picks? What changes or additions would you make? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. If you want a deeper understanding of my viewpoint on any of these games, you'll find full retrospectives on almost all of them. So feel free to check them out. Thank you for your time, and until next time, this is Rakzplayz signing off.